Hey guys, welcome to another episode of SEO on Air. Today we have a couple of special guests with us. They are the Shopify experts, and the name is Chris and Kaspars. Chris is the CMO of On the Map Marketing, and Kaspars is the CTO of On the Map Marketing. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Santel. Thanks for having us.
Great. So, guys, Casper and the team, they have done a really fantastic job when it comes to Shopify. They have their own app called Accessible, which is downloaded. I think it's been used by over 65 million times in the last 30 days. So it's like a wonderful thing. There's a lot of celebrity websites. They've been using this app. And as you know, Shopify is like really big these days. They are like close to $100 billion evaluation. And, it's like they're just rocking the show when it comes to e-commerce sites. And so, Chris, I think you're the best person to answer this question. How many sites are there in Shopify? Literally, whenever we speak to any e-commerce site owner, they usually say they have their site built on Shopify. So how big is the Shopify ecosystem?
Well, it's massively large and it keeps growing every single day. Just some fun facts. I don't know exactly the amount, how many Shopify sites are out there. Kaspars might know the exact number, but just the fact itself, from the top 10,000 sites, around 4% sites are on Shopify right now. So we're talking about top 10,000 most visited websites, and the number 4% is quite staggering. Just thinking what the previous ecosystem has looked like, and that number will just continue growing too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then the moment we think about e-commerce, we think about Magento, WooCommerce, because in WooCommerce especially, it's a free. So a lot of people are going to use it. But Shopify is a completely all-out paid component, isn't
it? Yeah. And I think what Shopify has focused so heavily on is just pre-built system where people can launch their own websites. Like, for instance, funny example, my mom totally surprised me actually like a year and a half ago. She's a painter and she launched her own website to sell her paintings. And I had no idea she was working on it. And she did it all by herself without any pre-existing development knowledge, right? So like just the ability how they set up their system is so effective. Like that's why I think they also have such high level of success right now.
That's great. I need to check with my mom as well. She's been up to recently online. I shouldn't be surprised she's selling some English books online. Anyway, so Chris, when it comes to Shopify, the first thing that we usually as an SEOs we approach the moment it's a Shopify site, we usually think, oh my God, that's not going to be as many options is going to be available. So we don't have access to the robots file. There's going to be a lot of URL restructuring, duplicate content issues and stuff. So is there, and most importantly, people used to come across something called forced URL structures when it comes to Shopify. So could you please share some more light on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of had a feeling you were going to talk about it because, like all things technology, there's certain already pre-existing kind of opinions about stuff. So let's dive into some of these facts and we'll give you guys our opinion how we do SEO and what we think about Shopify, being someone that work with Shopify sites almost on daily basis. Well, we do. So what you mentioned, the forced URL structure, right? Mm-hmm. So Shopify by default breaks down your website in 5 types of URLs. So one, just the regular product URLs. You will not be able, well, I guess you can override the URLs if you wanted to, but by default, they will come with this products folder for all your products. What's interesting, this is your main unique URL for all your products. Then, second thing Shopify does by default, and I actually really love the fact that they do, and some people might say they don't like it, but from site structure perspectives, they automatically create your category pages. So in this case, if I was going to optimize a page for women's shirts, they have already created this collections URL for me, and all women's shirts will appear in this page. So all I have to do is take this product, and I want to say, okay, place this product in my women's shirts collection. Well, they just simplified all my SEO work while other people would be doing some kind of custom structuring And maybe in WordPress, we even have to write those type of systems for ourselves, right? But Shopify has thought about it from the get-go, and they said, well, if you're going to have several products, you're going to put them in different types of categories. So I love this actual little default setup they have. Now, next one is kind of tricky one, and I think this is the one where people get really confused. So Shopify will take your product that you have submitted, and then they will create another version of that product within these collections you put them in. So we would say, okay, that's duplicate content. But what's interesting, by default, they add canonical tag for this product already in this new URL that they generated. So what happens is that we're signaling Google and we're saying, hey, this is the original URL, but here's a copy of that URL, and we just have this copy to add it in this collections page. So in such a way, we're dealing with the duplicate content kind of issue, but same time with the by default created canonical tags, it's not per se like a heavy issue right up front. And then there's two other types of URL structures. Sorry, was there a question about that?
Yes,
Happy to.
I was about to ask about this. This is quite surprising when you mentioned that this canonicalization is done by default, because this puts us SEOs into an embarrassing field. The moment when we pick up a site, when it run it through SiteLiner, where it's going to pick up the duplicate content, and then when we say to the client, but by default Shopify is already solving it. It's not like we have to say that these are duplicate content, because already canonically that canonical thing is tag is already added, right? So this is such a wonderful thing. We were actually not this. Yeah.
Right, and again, there's so many ways how to do SEO and so many opinions. Oh, do canonical tags work or they don't? Like, again, that's like that ongoing debate. But in our experience, like this solution works. And then the other two types of pages, URL structures. So ones are just that trigger regular pages. So these would be like informational pages about, FAQs or other type of things. And then also a blog structure. So Shopify also gives you a default blog structure. And we're going to get into this a little bit more afterwards too, like what are other benefits these default settings have. But they have really thought about what does a site owner need to make this website successful. Like they provide tons of information out there of, on how to optimize your website, etc. And like they have really thought about it, not just like, okay, we'll create some really good help guides. They actually built the site with this thought behind it, like, okay, what are default settings that a site owner would need to be super self-sufficient? And from day one, they can start publishing tons of content and necessary information out there for their e-commerce store.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, this is like, because normally what people think is like we have a store built on Shopify and then we host the blog in WordPress. That's what usually people tend to see. But this is like out of the box, we get the complete set of features. So I don't think people have to worry about having a separate blog on WordPress, right?
Yeah, no, you don't have to. Maybe there was some older versions of Shopify. I don't know. Kaspars, maybe you have some thoughts on that, but I'm not. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's just people don't know how to do it. So it's just lack of knowing things. So if you do it right, you shouldn't add a blog to WordPress. It should be done in Shopify. At least that's what I think.
Great. Okay. Cool.
Okay, so I guess let's kind of dive into like pros and cons of this kind of default settings, right? So pros: automatic page categorization and silos. I love that. Like site structure is such an exciting topic for me. So like just think about all the collections. Like from the day one, you can plan what you want your site to be, and like those collections will be created for you. And then you simply add them in your drop-down menus, and all your authority pages are there. Then you can start playing around with them. Okay, so that's awesome. So automatic page categorization and silos. Now the cons are a million ways how to do SEO, but the problem is these URLs basically cannot be overwritten. And Kaspars, you can probably talk a little more technically about it, but like just kind of out of the box, like from once you start working on Shopify sites, like you just need to count on the fact that your URLs will look like that. These mid parts, the products, collections, pages, blog, they will be like that from the get-go. So that's a little bit of a con, because if you want to play around with the URLs, you kind of have very clean URLs, maybe with a little bit keywords in them, like that presents a little bit of challenge. But, you know, do you guys believe URL structures matter a lot? Like that's you know, also a dilemma in SEO. Like some say they do, some say it doesn't. So I don't know.
No, seriously, Chris, because if it really matters, then Amazon shouldn't be ranking at all, right? Just
Right.
Amazon's URL structure, it's just crazy. And if really Google is gonna depend on a URL structure, yeah, maybe before long back it was mentioned as that, but I don't think URL structures are going to have a bigger play on this.
Right, exactly. So, you know, some say, oh, in Shopify you can't change the URL structure, but it's like, does it really matter? So, all right, let's dive a little deeper. A couple other interesting things that we wanted to mention. Obviously, we don't have all day. We could talk about Shopify, all kind of elements, but some interesting facts. So, let's say you're going to start your Shopify site. You want to start working on it, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to be on a trial account at first. So, trial accounts are not set to index. So you need to be on a paid account from day one. Otherwise, you're going to be doing all this work and information will not be indexed, which might be fine, might not, but still, it's kind of important to keep that in mind.
Right.
So site speed. I think that's an interesting topic that a lot of people bring up when they talk about Shopify. So if you add tons of apps, it might bloat your site speed, right?
Yeah.
But in our experience, and Kaspars will add more to this because obviously his technical background. But overall, we do not experience many site speed issues with Shopify sites. And the main reason is like their default themes that they provide you with, there's extremely rigorous process to get these themes approved. So by default, these themes come at super high quality, and like it's just Shopify is built to provide quality websites. So from day one, they are high quality, and the site speed is definitely above average. Kaspars, feel free to add to this.
Yeah, so basically how Shopify works, it pre-renders basically your code. So the code is written in Liquid, and then it just renders on the server and shows the basically HTML version to your customers. But what I have seen in most cases when the page speed is bad, it's really because of poor quality apps you have added. So I had just this case last week when one site was terribly slow, and it was just they added terms and conditions app, which can be which should be easily written customly with just a few lines of code. So they added just an app for that, and it slowed down the whole site. It took 20 seconds to load. We removed the app, added custom code, and it's like 1 second.
Okay.
So it sounds like a also pretty simple fix. Okay.
Great.
So other two things that are really interesting. One is, so we talked about URL structures. And sorry, I didn't ask if there was maybe some follow-up questions on the site speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we get the requests, when we work with few clients, Chris, when it comes to site speed, you know, when it comes to Shopify, the standard answer that usually SEOs give is that, you know, you don't have full control, and you have to, you know, maybe look at the theme and stuff. But the Kaspars solution is great, because we should probably start with trying to disable some of the apps and see if that helps with the site speed. That could be a quick fix. And if, for example, just the terms and conditions is very simple. Just simply add it as a content, and that's it, you're done. And that is going to spoil, you know, nearly 20 seconds load time. It's like huge. And so I think anyone who's listening to this, if you own a Shopify site, if you sense that there is a slowdown, just like as Kaspar has mentioned, just check disabling the apps and see if there is, you know, there is one particular app should be doing it. Because I think most of the themes are already approved, isn't it? You know, Chris, because before, I mean, they go through approval process and then only they are on the store. So definitely they would have gone through a performance check when it comes to themes, right?
Yeah.
So obviously.
Kaspars mentioned a couple of things on that too. We're actually working on a team ourselves, and the process is probably harder to get a team approved than actual app, right, Kaspars?
Yeah. So actually, Shopify allows you to create the theme only when they approve it, when they actually approve your idea. So you just cannot just create a theme and submit it. You could do this like 3-4 years ago, but now it's a different story. Shopify has to actually approve your idea that it will actually be a good theme, and it has to be unique and so on. And yeah, the process is pretty complicated right now, which is good. I like it.
Right.
Yeah, great.
And
Yes.
to me, that just speaks for their expectations of what kind of teams they want to give store owners. So like you have really high quality teams where super smart people are working on them. Like your end product will be really good. So like anyone can launch super high quality sites right on Shopify. Like that, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple other highlights here. So we're talking about the pre-defaulted URL structures. So by default, one really awesome thing that Shopify does is they have built-in product and article schema markups. I'm going to scroll back up to the product pages we were talking about. But all these product pages, they come in with built-in schema markups. So if you want your product to come up with, specific pricing, reviews, etc., different types of the details, Shopify already has that set up for you. So you don't need additional plugin or anything like that. So you have it in the system itself. And then another interesting thing, so like Kaspar was saying, there's absolutely no reason you should be using WordPress as your blogging solution, because Shopify has thought about that too. You have a great blog structure where these blogs come actually with article markups. So what that means is your articles could come up in some of the news feature snippets or other elements. Not going to get too deep into the schema markup conversation because that would be a whole different podcast. But those are like two easy wins where people probably don't even know that it's available to them, but it really is. And again, just simplifies things.
Yeah, absolutely. If moms and dad are going to have the built-in store, they're not going to care about the markups, and this is already being taken care of by the system itself automatically.
Yeah. And then another awesome element is out-of-the-box redirects. So you can do redirects of the pages directly from the Shopify admin panel. So I think that comes in handy too.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll switch gears a little bit, and I think this is kind of Shopify so good, so good, so good. That's the notion of this conversation. But I want to talk about something that we've had a little bit of kind of debate, and again, millions of ways how to do SEO. But I think this one kind of leans a bit toward the opposite way how Shopify is set up. Again, I think this can be an interesting one to kind of uncover.
Sure.
So, international SEO. So obviously, you're selling products, you want to sell in different countries. Like that just kind of seems like a normal scenario for big stores.
Right.
So here's how Shopify suggests you should be structuring your site. So you have two options, right? Let me scroll to their two options. So get another Shopify account. Okay, interesting. So maybe they want you to have several Shopify accounts because with millions of users, that's probably a big profit margin for them.
Yeah.
And second one is get another domain. Okay. So I kind of pulled a couple examples I'm going to show as well. This example is in their help article for Shopify store with multiple countries. So let's take a look at the option they're suggesting, and then we're going to look at option how we would normally do international SEO for like a custom site or any other system. So we can see that this is an Australian site. They're looks like they're selling some cool smartphone gadgets, right?
Right.
So we can see that this domain is .au. Okay, so good thing about it, and again, this is pros and cons conversation. Good thing about international URL, like the TLDs, if they're in specific country, it means, okay, your information will index instantly in that country, right? Because if we did it like the folder structure, which would be .com, then this would be our Australian domain, right? So the difference here is we don't have .com AU domain. We have directly Australian domain by default. So what happens now is you're kind of losing a little bit of that domain authority if you had it under .com and then you have basically your AU pages. Mm-hmm. Now, there could be several reasons why they're doing that. And I think one is, again, the simplicity, because it's probably much easier to set up several store replicas. And let's take a look how they did it. So up here, all these stores are interlinked, which is cool, right? So let's go to Canada store. Boom, now it redirected us to the Canada store. And what's really happening is they have five different accounts and they just have interlinked 5 websites into kind of one sort of seamless experience, right? So now let's switch to US, right?
So Chris, I'm more interested to look at, so how does that product descriptions in this case work? Because it's going to be like for each and every country, you have to do a separate product description because it might end up, otherwise it might end up as a duplicate content, right, across these pages. For example, the same domains, for example, can we look at one example of a product page where?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, let's go here. Let's go to Canada, right? Mm-hmm. Canada. Oh wait, was it the same?
Yeah, I think it's the shop, right? Yeah, all iPhone users. Yeah.
And then that'd be interesting if they probably have different. Oh no, it's the same product, right? All iPhone devices. Okay, so. Oh, okay, cool. So here's our. Just do. So this is our Canada one, and let's go to. And this is our US one, right? Yep. I did Command F. I copied the text from that page and pasted it here. But it does look similar. Centil, if you have suggestions how to check this faster, feel free to give me some.
No, I think it's quite similar. It's the same content actually, Chris. Yeah.
Now the question is, you're launching it as on a separate domain, right? And you're setting up separate webmaster tools too. So maybe if the content is indexed in US and content is indexed in Canada, maybe it's treated separately. We would have to dive deeper in it. I think they also in the help article talk about that because they say duplicate your shop. So basically, I think I read migrate all your page content. Mm-hmm. So let's see, there's no shortcut to export. It's move your page content from your original shop to your new.
Yeah, you know what? In the second point they have mentioned, after migration to avoid being penalized by Google, we should implement hreflang. So that is exactly what I was about to ask. Because the country-specific hreflang tags, I think we should be able to add it, and then it should get that issue resolved.
Yeah, so they're saying here, href is a tag, right?
Yes.
So I guess with the hreflangs, then I guess it's not treated as duplicate content. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah. So just like the canonicalization within the website, now this hreflang tag is going to help you resolve that country-level duplicate content as well. So now we are a bit more safe. So I think this is quite an important thing that people should note because this is quite a common scenario because people are drop shipping. They might be, shipping to multiple countries and, you can't just simply afford to do content for each and every country. So obviously it's better to ensure that this is, taken care of.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's beneficial in their example is the fact that now you have several stores. So I imagine inventory management becomes easier when you have like several systems. Because then if they had the URL structure we would kind of like suggest, which is everything coming under .com and then setting up everything in custom way. Actually, I can show you a great example. Printful, maybe you guys heard of this company. They're actually growing really fast and they're also out of Riga, Latvia. So you can see here, they have the Spanish page. I actually pulled it right away. So they don't have a separate domain for the Spanish content, but it goes directly in the folder that is ES, which would stand for Spain. So again, this is obviously a custom site, so you can create things any way you want. But from domain authority perspectives, this is much better solution than launching several sites. But then again, there's a pros of launching individual sites too, because from index perspectives, it might be better just to launch the international TLD, because then it gets picked up in that respective country from day one. But when you have the .com, it's a bit more complex setup to follow through. And as we identified in this conversation and the call, that Shopify is pushing things to be simple. So like anyone can launch international SEO. Like you read this article, and it's like, okay, well, I could pull this off. Or you have a developer and you can actually pull it off without having like, some international SEO specialist,
Right.
come in and do all the work for you. So yeah, and Alita Solis, I would be curious to hear her opinion. Maybe you can have her as a guest too on international SEO. Would be fun to hear her thoughts on Shopify SEO for international kind of cases. Okay. Any afterthoughts, comments? Maybe you guys feel free to throw some questions at us.
Yes, Chris. So, like you mentioned, it's always better to keep it. There's two ways of looking at it. If, from a SEO convenience perspective, it's always better to host it under .com / the folders of the content, because when you're building the backlinks, it's easier to always point out to these pages, and the link authority remains within the domain, and it's quite easier to rank well. But again, on the other side, when you're looking at it, it's always the local TLDs, the country specific TLDs always have a higher chance. So for a .com site to need 10 to 20 links, I think a local, a TLD, a country specific TLD shouldn't need that many links to even rank on the particular country, right? So there are both ways of looking at it. I think people have to take it based on a case by case basis. It's not like a one size fits all. It all depends on, it all depends on the situation. And also, like you mentioned, I love that fact that, if you have multiple websites or multiple different country specific, it's easier to manage that particular country specific, inventory, right? Because sometimes some products, the quality might differ. To fix the quality standards of each and every country, there might be a different set of SKUs that people might have. So it's quite easier doing that way. So I think it's like a case by case basis, but I think it's best to get a suggestion from SEOs like you, to understand, what is the best thing for these SEOs to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Cool. Okay, cool. And then last part, Kaspars took a little bit of time, and like he mentioned, he's working on Shopify sites on a daily basis and sees all kinds of scenarios. So he put together a little list on most common mistakes he has seen from a developer point of view. So let's run through those quickly.
Sure.
Yeah, the first one, well, these are just listed in not specific order, but the first one I have seen a lot of times is multiple H1s, and this is caused by just people itself, like just stumbling around the theme and like just adding a title, because like originally themes just come with a one H1, of course, and then just like some other, for example, an unexperienced developer just add another one, then the owner adds another one, and so it's add ups. And I've seen the cases when it's like 20 H1s per page. So yeah, that's one of the issue. The second thing is, a lot of times I've seen that product pages are missing content. So it's actually the product without any content, and then just people ask, all right, our website isn't ranking. What should we do? All right, let's start with the content. So that's one of the things. Then another thing is, missing webmaster and sitemap isn't submitted. So Shopify actually creates a sitemap for you. It's available for all stores, but users tend to not submit it, and then it just hangs there for no reason. Another thing that's Chris previously already mentioned, that product insight pages doesn't include collection name, which I prefer that it should be. And it's again, you can modify it in a theme. You just have to know where to do it, and it's like 1-minute fix.
Mm-hmm.
So I have example here down. Yeah, and second, another thing is lack of content in general.
Right.
Product pages and homepage and blogs, like
Mm-hmm.
just no content out there. So that's
Right.
definitely an issue. Yeah, then multiple times I have seen that it's missing titles or meta descriptions,
Mm-hmm.
which also it's usually made by human error, because like sometimes you change it, you just remove it, or mess up your theme code by just, I don't know, leave the tag open and H1 or title or meta description is just ignored. So
Yeah.
I've seen multiple cases like that. And same thing applies to alt tags for images.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, or Accessibly app generates alt tags for you. If your image doesn't have any alt tags, or artificial intelligence will take a look at an image, see what's in there, and add alt tags to it, which is pretty cool. So we can actually see, like our server gets a lot of requests for generating a new alt tag. So that's an issue for stores, and
Right.
our app solves it too.
Right.
And then next thing is it's pretty
That's the common one because
common.
people
Yeah,
people just get it directly from the manufacturer and they just upload the entire dump CSV file with thousands of products in with the same description of the product. It's as same as what you mentioned first. At least the lack of content. Actually, yes, from a SEO point of view, it's bad, but at least it doesn't hurt the site. But if you're just going to add tons of descriptions from copied from the manufacturer, it's going to even damage your website more, right?
Yeah.
exactly. And I have cases when customer just like says to me like, look, well, it's a description, what's wrong with it? Like, I'm trying to explain, like, look, you just copied it from the different website, and this is not how it works.
And sometimes, Casper, one thing that we noticed before, that is one site. It had about 50,000 products, and they never got indexed. The site was not getting indexed more than 100 URLs per day, and we're just running back and forth. The site had a clear sitemap. Everything was good, but I think Google itself, the moment you're introducing your site first to Googlebot, the moment it detects that there is a lot of products being added with the same kind of descriptions it finds in other sites, then I think the crawl rate goes down drastically. So that's when the indexing issue starts happening. And people used to complain that, not all my products are getting indexed and all the things. So we have, there is one interesting client when we were trying to troubleshoot, we found that the product descriptions is 100% copied from other website, and that other website has a domain authority of over 70 or something, and they always rank well, and this website had like the same description, and maybe Google is something doing around it. Maybe they're trying to figure out sites with such level of duplicate descriptions. They're just trying to avoid indexing them altogether. I think it's very important thing that people who are trying to get these bulk products from manufacturers white label it and try to sell it. I think they should be really aware of this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah. Great.
So yeah,
Um,
a lot of times also I have seen that the schema is broken, or it's even not implemented in the theme. So
Right.
that's also an issue. You have to always check your webmaster to see if everything's set up correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the big point about the page speed, it's apps, and
Yeah.
it's I think Shopify is, because like when you submit an app, you have to go through the review process, which they actually bumped the requirements recently. So I guess it will be resolved in the future. But if your store is using like 2 years or 3 years old app,
Mm-hmm.
you might have a problem there, because like I've seen a lot of
mhm.
cases like that.
Okay. So getting an app approved is easier compared to getting a theme approved, right? What do you say?
That's correct, but still, app review process, it's pretty also intense. Like We are actually working on our second app, and Shopify is like, and if the app is actually bigger, then Shopify will go through everything, like, and again, like, I like it. It gives you some kind of responsibility, and imagine like your app is used by thousands of stores. Of course, they want you to make it right. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I
because
would say
they are
it's even
actually
like a
putting,
little bit. Go ahead, Kasper.
so they are actually putting the reputation of their own, because like a lot of times actually users think that they are using Shopify apps, so they think that those apps are all built by Shopify, and if the visitors are saying something bad about the app, then they actually think that, oh, it's Shopify fault, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Well, and
On a
yeah,
certain degree, it is.
and if you I'll add something to that. When you pay for the apps, the app cost is actually calculated in your whichever team package you have. So like Shopify, like the whatever payment you have for the Shopify package you have, that's where they add also your app costs. So there's some interesting similarities how Apple does things too. So it's interesting, definitely.
Yeah. And obviously, you guys have your own app. I could see the next fun fact about, your accessibility app. Hey, Casper,
Yeah.
before this conversation, you showed us the dashboard right behind you. Can you tell
Yeah.
us, in the last 30 days, what's the updated number?
So the last 30 days, we got 63 million, 63 million requests to our server. Basically, the app loaded for users 63 million times, which is a lot.
Any famous
And
websites that is using your app? We're pretty much interested to know that.
Go
Chris,
ahead,
I think
Casper.
you
See
have
how the
from my side, Deadmau5,
Oh, okay.
that's a pretty big one. We have Paris Hilton. uh, we have Chris. What else we have?
I think we had K Swiss was using it.
You know what?
But you
From
know what's interesting?
uh-huh.
These are not the sites with most traffic. You would think they are, but actually there's several really large e-commerce stores like in vitamin space, all kind of different spaces, and like they're the ones that put the heavy load on our app. Like, these are like heavily visited sites, so we're really proud of it that it's able to, like, that was actually a challenge, and after we launched it, like actually being able to handle such high volumes of requests, and now it's super stable and we can easily provide it to as many stores as needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
it was technically challenging. It was technically challenging because like we were handling. Well, I think in the first 30 days we were handling around 4 million requests, and so imagine like in one exact time, like multiple stores actually are using the same app and visitors are visiting the site, and our server crashed multiple times. So we actually had to redo the server structure. So we added like a multiple fallback servers and basically created different clusters and added failover DNS. So all the geeky stuff was added there, and we are now safe. It's up for, I don't know, like we had last incident, I don't know, months ago, like, and it was like just a minor thing. So it's up for a couple months without any problems.
great. So when did you guys launch this app?
It was in September,
Okay,
end
so
of September, yeah.
end of September 2019, right? So it's been like a little
Yeah.
over a few months. And so honestly, tell us what was going on your mind when you launched the app. How much you thought you'll hit on a 30-day period? Was it this level, 53 million times? This is such a good
Well,
number to, as a developer, when you do all the hard work, millions of lines of code, getting everything done, and when you see, I mean, the server crash because of the use. It's a good thing, right? Because your app is being utilized, everyone. Should be a great feeling for you.
well, uh, well, at least for me, the app was different purpose. So I was ready to get into the whole Shopify ecosystem. So what I was thinking, like, look, if we made the app and the app will be like developed professionally and good, Shopify will notice us, because like Shopify actually featured us, and it's rare. So they featured us in a homepage for a week, and it's super rare. So my intent was a different one. Like I didn't like expect any like huge downloads, but I was like thinking, look, let's make it right, and maybe it will open like different kind of opportunities in Shopify, and it actually did. So the product was built like we actually cared about it, and we cared about it, yeah. And actually Shopify featured us, and then later on Shopify invited us as experts, because like it's a closed circle. There's no way you can just ask Shopify, all right, invite us. It's a closed circle. So they reach out to us and ask, look guys, do you want to be an expert? And I said like, yeah, sure. That was one of my dreams come true.
Cool. So any other stats I could see, the mobile users, so it's quite a lot. No surprises there, 70%.
It is pretty high. Like 70% of like shops actually are browsed on mobile devices. Right. It's pretty high.
Yeah, interesting.
So where are you guys going next? What is the next version of Accessibility is going to have? Is there any other feature? Maybe you can give a background. Maybe if people who are not aware of Accessibility app, maybe you can give a quick intro about what the app does. What problem is it solving?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this question. So accessibility, it's an interesting topic that evolved. I'm going to say in 2018, it became really kind of like a heavy topic, and then 2019, why it became actually very known topic is because a lot of websites started getting sued due to lack of accessibility for people with disabilities. So what it is, it's people with hearing, eyesight issues, hand issues, like they can't navigate the site. So basically demand for website access is extremely high. Like anyone needs to use the internet, but not all websites are built for every type of users. So when there's these accessibility issues, site owners have two options. Either they can do a custom audit, where then the site is audited for their accessibility, different types of elements. There's specific guidelines. It was the Kaspars, remind me the abbreviation, I'm blanking on it. VCAG?
ADA.
Oh, ADA. Yeah, ADA compliance. And then there's specific requirements you need to adjust to. And what it does, these requirements basically put your site in a category where it can be accessed through different types of tools people use. People with disabilities, they use different types of tools to actually use internet. But if your website's not configured properly, they're not able to actually use your website. So that was presented as a big issue, and basically it's now treated the same way as if you had, let's say, a grocery store, and your grocery store doesn't have a ramp to drive on with a wheelchair, right? So now they're treating websites and internet in general as a requirement that your website needs to be accessible for people with disabilities. So this ramp example is really good. We actually met with Lighthouse here in Miami. They were testing our accessibility app. So it was a really interesting experience, and they gave us real feedback that we implemented afterwards in the app. So that's the issue. So every website needs to be accessible for any type of users. And that's kind of like by law required. There was a big lawsuit with, I think it was Domino's Pizza or one of them. And it even went to a full trial. So it's really evolving. So our app, what it does, it basically solves this issue for you in kind of without a large process of custom audits of the site. Like Kaspars mentioned, the image alt tags. Why image alt tags are so important? Because let's say you have visual impairments and you're reading the content on a page, but then there's supportive images. So alt tags actually read the image information for them. So then they can kind of visualize a little bit better the content on that page. That was actual feedback that we got from people we met here in Miami Lighthouse. But yeah, kind of in summary, it's a big topic. Like I'm sure you can share in podcast notes some information on it too. But yeah, so our accessibility app, why we built it is to simplify life for e-commerce store owners, because like e-commerce stores are also being shopped with people with disabilities. So like you have to make your site available for them to shop easier. And when I'm saying people with disabilities, actually it's not just people with disabilities. Actually, older people, they have hard time seeing the fonts. So our tool helps you increase the fonts. It helps you change the contrast. Little things like that. So it's super useful.
Absolutely. Wow, that's a great thing, guys, that you guys have done. It just simplifies the process. It's quite good. So this is just limited to Shopify. You guys have any plans to have this on other platforms as well? Because this is like it's going to be going global, and it might be useful for other platform people as well, right?
We do have plans. Yeah, we built a WordPress solution for it too, which we haven't really pushed it into like a mainstream advertising for it yet, because there's still a couple of tweaks that need to meet the ADA requirements and things like that. Meanwhile, our Shopify one is the most refined one, so we kind of pushed that out for a while now. And then, we'll develop also a standalone solution. But, like Kaspar said, this was more like a little hobby project we launched to have to start building our reputation in Shopify marketplace. But yeah, it evolved a bit bigger than just small little micro project.
Great. It's a great job, guys. Great job, Kaspars, Chris. It's been it's really good. It's going to help a lot of stores for sure. And really enjoyed it. In fact, I'm just checking the time now. It's actually one of the longest podcasts that we did. And I literally didn't know the time is like, we usually limit it to 20, 30 minutes, but you guys have shared so much information. This is really good. So guys who is listening, you should really check out On The Map Marketing, especially their accessibility app, because like Chris was mentioning, it's quite a requirement. You should have it for your website and for complaints as well. So it's obviously this app, get that accessibility thing up and running without breaking a sweat.
Yeah, you guys should. And Shopify SEO, we're a go-to as well. I mean, there's tons of things we do, and most important, like people in our company, we love what we do. So like, it's not just working with professionals. It's like you working with someone who's really excited to help you. Like it just changes the entire experience.
Absolutely. You guys have a ton of information to share. It's really great. It's a great conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking your time out. I know you guys are busy, but we really appreciate taking your time out and coming to this podcast and sharing such wonderful information. Thank you so much, guys, for being part of our show. Have a great day.
Thank you, Santel.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.